hello, and welcome to another episode of Black Girl Ambition with me, Niya Baxter. This is your go-to space for community, empowerment, and practical tips to help you level up in your career and in all aspects of your life. This is a place to claim ambition on what? Your own damn terms. Black Girl Ambition is not just a podcast. It is a movement, and I am so honored to have you on this journey with me. If you have listened to a previous episode, you know I like to describe this space as executive level coffee chat meets sister circle meets motivational masterclass. Please rate, review, and subscribe if you love this podcast, if you love this platform. It means a lot and it helps others to find this community as well. I am going to take a short break after the release of this episode to prepare for season 3, and I will be returning in September. In the meantime, prior to September, please catch up on any episodes that you may have missed. I released 13 so far this season, all with incredible guests. So be sure to go tap in and listen and follow along on Instagram and LinkedIn. I'll be sharing much more there over the coming weeks. As I prepare for season 3, I would also love to hear from you at Niya@blackgirlambition.com. That's BLKGirl Ambition.com. I'd love to hear suggestions from you for future badass, ambitious guests or other topics that you want me to explore. Maybe those are new topics that I have not dug into yet, or others that you would like me to go deeper on. Would love to hear from you and to know how the message is resonating with you so far. Let's get into it. This is going to be another solo episode for me today. This time we are going to get into the process, the strategy, and the positioning that go into personal branding. I feel like we've been talking a lot, not me necessarily, but just writ large, social media. I've seen a lot of dialogue around personal branding and wanted to offer my honest take on building a personal brand while working a 9-to-5. Building Black Girl Ambition while working a 9-to-5 in corporate and the journey has been very interesting. I have definitely learned a lot, and I'm going to share some strategies with you today and some practical tips that I hope are useful to you if you are on a similar journey of building your personal brand or considering building your personal brand. Given the job market, the political environment, it strikes me that many other Black women are just in this similar space, right? The similar space of defining ourselves outside of the so-called walls of corporate. I think that we all need options. A girl likes options. I think we need options. I think we need revenue streams, plural. Okay, not singular, plural. And even beyond that, beyond the revenue, we need hobbies. We need things that we pour ourselves into, that we are passionate about, that are just about us and just about our own interests, just about defining our own identities for ourselves. I'll start by saying that this conversation exists within the macro environment of greater, broader shifts that are happening writ large. The job market is not what it used to be. There is definitely some sort of reckoning that's happening across so-called white-collar work. Artificial intelligence is disrupting industries that were once considered to be safe and stable, like tech. The political climate is uncertain. It's led to mass layoffs across the federal government. Those have also then cascaded to state and local governments. And government work was a bedrock of middle-class employment for Black women for decades. But I'm not sure if you all saw this article last week, but MSNBC released a report stating that nearly 300,000 Black women 300,000 Black women have left the labor force since February. That is an enormous figure. And some of that's voluntary, sure, but a lot of it is involuntary. And on top of that, when I was doing some further research, I learned that there are over 500,000 Black women who still have not returned to the workforce since the pandemic. So the real unemployment rate for Black women is just above 10%. Now, the national rate is just over 4%. But when talking about unemployment in our community, the real unemployment rate for Black women is just above 10%. Then you take this and go look at McKinsey's latest report on women in the workplace. This is a study that they release every year. They released the one for 2025. And I'm not going to get into all of the research, but I would encourage you to go Google it and to go read it. It tells a very familiar story of glass ceilings and being stereotyped as aggressive, plateauing in middle management, et cetera, et cetera. Now, listen, I don't share all of this to be discouraging at all. I share it to just set the stage for the broader macro environment of building a personal brand, because I don't think that it's something that is optional. I think it is something that is strategic and something that is necessary. All of those statistics that I shared are true. But part of me has stopped even looking at the statistics and definitely the news, because it's limiting and depressing. And to me, at this point in my journey, it's important not to internalize it. So yes, all of those things may be true that I just shared, but there is still space for me, and there is still space for you, and there is still space for us to thrive. And building strong, intentional personal brands, like I said, I think it's non-negotiable. It's like insurance. We just need to have it. So one of the first things that I've learned in building a personal brand is you have to get comfortable being visible. Getting comfortable being visible. So building a personal brand really requires taking the center stage in your own story. And for some people, that can feel a little uncomfortable. It can feel a bit cringe. But it's like anything, it takes practice. It takes practice and showing up in small ways, then in bigger ways, until it becomes like muscle memory. It was definitely considered, I would say it's still considered taboo somewhat to build a personal brand while working in corporate. But I just, on the other hand, don't think that it's smart for any corporation to own your entire professional identity. I don't think, with all of those macro forces that I described earlier, it's smart to do so. So we owe it to ourselves, you owe it to yourself to show up for yourself. I mean, there are definitely trade-offs, there are definitely risks, and it also takes strategy. There is nuance. Building a personal brand is really a series of choices to determine how aligned or truly independent you want to show up respective to the corporation that you work for. Some of my earlier lessons too on letting go of perfectionism. How many perfectionists do we have listening now? Letting go of that perfectionism and tuning out the critics is also really helpful here, especially in the beginning when you're getting used to taking up that space, getting comfortable with being the center of your own story. You got to let some of that shit go. And so I would encourage you to, if you have not already, go listen to my earlier solo episode this season entitled The Road to Black Girl Ambition, the 7 lessons that I have learned since launching. Personal branding is part career strategy in terms of showcasing what you know, and part personal growth in showcasing how you show up. So that brings me to my next point of, when building a personal brand while working in corporate, it is important to decide what you want to be known for. I thought here it might be useful to use myself as a case study that I walk through. So let's talk a little bit about my own personal brand that I am building. At the core of my personal brand is a through line of culture, period. Culture has become kind of a buzzword, but for me, it's rooted in shaping spaces where people thrive and they grow and they show up fully as themselves. So if you were to look for me on LinkedIn, I have positioned myself on LinkedIn as a culture architect. Okay. A culture architect as a strategic voice in workforce innovation and corporate strategy and in organizational change. I speak about business outcomes, I speak about leadership, and also systems level impact. Now, if you look for me on Instagram, I lead with Black Girl Ambition, my creative brainchild and storytelling platform. And here I center authenticity, personal style, and the nuance of being an ambitious Black woman who is also accomplished and evolving at the same time. So you'll hear me speak a lot about reinvention and resilience and reclaiming your voice, especially in systems that overlook or underestimate us. But across both platforms, LinkedIn and Instagram, authenticity and candor are non negotiable for me. So, whether I'm sharing a mindset shift, or I am showing off my own personal style, or I'm sharing a behind the scenes moment, I try to show up fully and to do it with honesty. That is part of the brand that I am building in owning the full story. So, my brand lives in two worlds. There's the corporate, there's the creative, I'm like equal parts corporate and creative, but they do intersect quite often. But when they do, the messages are reinforcing and not competing. Culture is the through line through my corporate identity and Black Girl Ambition as well. I want to talk you through a couple other examples. I want to point to some very well-known women who have built their personal brands alongside their corporate careers and show how it has paid off. Now, the first case study is Brooke DeVard. Are you all familiar with Brooke DeVard? She is legendary at this point. She started her Naked Beauty podcast in, I believe, 2016, well before many other people had even thought about starting a podcast, myself included. But Brooke DeVard worked full time when she started her podcast. She held positions at Instagram and Ralph Lauren, and she built the Naked Beauty podcast empire alongside it, which has led to a one-of-a-kind career. She has masterfully built a personal brand that sits at the intersection of beauty and wellness and storytelling and luxury, and it's centered on the lived experiences of women of color. She centered the stories that she didn't hear. She has gone on to launch her own fragrance brand. Her podcast is critically acclaimed. She has gone on to consult for corporations off of her brand expertise, and then was recently named the Chief Content Officer at Refinery 29. So through her podcast and the brand that she built externally, she has gone from corporate to entrepreneur and back to corporate, but leapfrogged how many roles and how many years to get to the C-suite with this latest role that she landed. So that's Brooke DeVard. Another one, y'all know I have to shout out whenever I get a chance, my bestie, Bozoma Saint John, who is iconic in the marketing world. Icon. She has been the chief marketing officer at Netflix and Uber, an Apple Music executive who launched the global campaign for Apple Music. Like, she launched the global brand campaign for Apple Music. But alongside these corporate roles, she was always very intentional about owning her brand as a badass executive, a motivational speaker who also just bridges corporate strategy with humanity, who talks about being a Black woman in corporate, who talks about her experiences with grief, who talks about being a mother, and all of these making her a stronger leader. The brand that she has built provided her the platform and the credibility to become a best-selling author, now the CEO of her own hair brand, of course, new cast member on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and an executive speaker. So she has built an incredible career in this Act Two for herself. And who knew? I think that these are such exceptional examples of women who have gone on to have incredible careers by being very thoughtful and intentional about showing up for themselves and the brands that they have built. Now, you might say, Niya, those are famous women. We do not know them. Give us a different example. I'm going to give you, and I put relatable in quotes because I have some thoughts on referring to Black women as relatable or not, but that's for a whole other podcast. So this relatable example is my former guest, Dara Chike-Obi. We recorded an episode together entitled Who Says We're Selfish, where we explore the topic of motherhood and ambition. Dara is badass. So go listen to that episode for sure. But when I first interviewed Dara, she was an inventor and the founder of a baby tech company focused on helping women and families establish healthy feeding routines. That's what she was doing when we were first introduced. Now, when we connected again, she'd pivoted into the beauty aesthetic space, specifically beauty aesthetic education for women 40 plus, based on her extensive experience in skincare and cosmetic procedures. These are two very, very different industries, but the through line for Dara is women's wellness, women's well-being. That's the personal brand umbrella that all of Dara's interests nest under. The wellness and well-being through line allows her the flexibility to pivot with messaging that is different but still consistent. Do you understand what I mean? So I'm going to offer you a great chat GPT prompt. I hope y'all are using AI. We're going to do another deep dive episode on that topic, by the way. But I'm going to offer you a great chat GPT prompt that you can use to help strengthen and clarify your own personal brand. And it'll also help you to come up with an action plan to get started if you have not already. So I want you to check the show notes for the chat GPT prompt that you can use. I will also be sharing that on Instagram this week in a carousel. So be sure to check that out as well and put it to good use. Let me know how it works for you. Now, I love getting to the tactical as well. So I want to share one other very tactical piece of building your personal brand while working in corporate. And that is, honey, you got to understand the company guidelines and restrictions. Like that's just the truth. If you expect to continue to earn the paycheck from the corporate job, you must understand company guidelines and restrictions. So I would encourage you to review your company's administrative policies related to outside activities and social media presence. And in some cases, consider that special approval may be needed, especially if you work at a larger corporation. Certain precautions that I take online are not to overshare stories or specific scenarios that can be traced back to any particular person, even if I don't name names. I also don't speak about internal company policies or strategies or interview employees of that company or use company resources to execute anything related to this podcast and this platform. Like, think of it as a firewall. You have to put up a firewall and use very good judgment. But with these guardrails in place, I'm able to still show up intentionally and authentically. For me, the goal isn't oversharing. It's to be open. It's to share knowledge and create community with other like-minded Black women in a way that feels genuine. So a lot of it is about personal judgment. I would also encourage you when building a personal brand, if you are creating anything related to your ideas and intellectual property, please seek out a trademark and copyright attorney who can help you to protect your ideas and your intellectual property. It is so important. I also have a good recommendation there too. So email me if you would like the connection. I'd be happy to make it for you. Now, I talk about community a lot on this platform, but it cannot be stressed enough. The people that you surround yourself with determine so much. The proximity to people who are supportive or not, the ideas they have, the level of creativity and possibility that they have about themselves, it matters so much who you surround yourselves with. And I don't think that that can be overstated. So when building a personal brand and working a 9 to 5, you cannot be surrounded with small-minded, judgmental bitches. Okay? Say it with me. We are not surrounding ourselves with small-minded, judgmental bitches. It just ain't gonna work. Okay, maybe they're not judgmental bitches. Maybe they're just trapped by limiting beliefs and they don't know how to dream. We'll give the benefit of the doubt. But I hope that, one, you turn to this Black Girl Ambition community as your number one source for inspiration, for community, for seeing the possibilities of what life could be, the possibilities of what you could achieve. One of my goals is to invest in building community, that knowledge sharing, those in-person and virtual experiences. But we're starting here from where we are with this mic and this platform. Some more to come. Based on your interests, your industry, go to where your people are. Are those conferences? Show up in person. So much of building relationships and building community is showing up. So show up in person and build that community. Also, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is an amazing resource. It is definitely having a moment right now, but you should be capitalizing on it. Do not stay silent on LinkedIn. It is a great tool to build your personal brand. I would encourage you to follow people who you want to learn more from. And also, don't be afraid to send a DM. I have found people on LinkedIn to be fairly receptive to getting to know folks over a quick coffee chat. In the end, it's all about showing up for yourself every day, right now, maybe imperfect. Because as I said before, building a personal brand is non-negotiable. And it's really about visibility. It's not a vanity project, it's strategy. That's it for now. Thank you for listening. And remember, your ambition is your superpower. Reach out to me at Niya@blackgirlambition.com. Again, to share suggested guests or future topics. Hit that subscribe button if you have not already. And if you love this platform, please rate and review. I will see you in September. Until then, stay ambitious.
Overzealous when I'm thinking about the cash flow. I never had no handouts, just came natural. I've been testing so much, all these wrestlers nice.